Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to the Dreamerspro Podcast. And today we're going to be covering a lot of interesting things. Again, I'm your host, Charles, of the Dreamerspro Podcast. Today we're just going to be doing a bit of a weekly recap and some other interesting things. Again, if you're listening to this podcast and you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you go check us out on YouTube. The name of our YouTube channel is called Dreamerspro. And if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, make sure you check out the Dreamerspro Podcast. We're going to have the link in the description below for you guys, and we're on Spotify and iTunes, so make sure you guys go ahead and check all of that out. Now, in today's episode, I got some interesting things I want to get into that I think you guys are going to enjoy. Some of it a bit current, some of it a bit not so current, but yet and still quite interesting for you guys. So I want you guys just to bear with me and sit back and enjoy the show. Now, first thing I want to get into was that it turns out that Shannon Sharpe was a very, very, very big Kobe Bryant fan. Now, this came as a big surprise to me. So I was recently listening to the Up in Smoke podcast hosted by Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. And if any of you guys know anything about Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, Steven Jackson is a former NBA champion with the San Antonio Spurs. Matt Barnes played on, for multiple years in the NBA. So did Steven Jackson, and the both of them are known for giving really honest takes on sports, and they tell it like it is. And on their podcast, these guys are allowed to use profanity. So they're really unfiltered, and they, and the type of guests that they have ranged from Snoop Dogg to, Lou Williams, to Shannon Sharpe and so many others. So they have a nice blend of guests, either in sports or in entertainment. But for this particular episode, they were interviewing Shannon Sharpe, and Shannon Sharpe, who is in the NFL Pro Hall of Fame, 3-time Super Bowl champion, multiple-time All Pro Bowl player, and one of the most interesting people to see, to listen to as far as a sports commentator. And, he's a co-star on the show Undisputed that he co-hosts with Skip Bayless, and is probably one of the best sports shows going. Him and Skip Bayless give a really good counterbalance to each other. But Shannon Sharpe is really known. I mean, obviously, he has a lot of great political insight, especially when he was talking about the Colin Kaepernick situation and so many others. But one of the things he's really known for is his big, he's a huge, huge, huge LeBron James supporter, to the point where you will see him, if LeBron has a good game, you'll see him come out with a GOAT mask. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, he is wildly, wildly, wildly entertaining, and he's really good at his job. And in the podcast, he spoke about a plethora of things, especially of how, of his upbringing, how Skip Bayless vouched for him for his job on Undisputed, how the management wasn't so sure about him because he's a football player, and they weren't really sure if, he could talk about other sports like baseball, soccer, basketball, and others, but tennis. But Skip Bayless really went to bat for him and really said that that's the person that he wanted. And he spoke about his determination to do a really good job and make Skip Bayless proud. And he put in the work to the point where it became a little bit maniacal. And he realized that maybe he was doing a little bit too much. He would go home after shooting a show and watch it 4 times just to see how he did, how he didn't do, things like that. And Shannon Sharpe seems to be a pretty great dude. But for all intended purposes of this particular episode, I'm going to be talking about discovering that Shannon Sharpe was a huge Kobe Bryant fan, which was something I just didn't see coming. So in the podcast, well, first of all, let me let you guys go ahead and take a listen to it and listen to how he basically developed his love for Kobe Bryant and ultimately how he ended up becoming a huge LeBron James fan. Check that out. Listen to this.
Okay, if I say LeBron was better than Kobe, that doesn't mean I dislike Kobe.
Right.
But here's something that people don't really know. I used to cape for Kobe harder than what I cape for LeBron.
Didn't know that.
Finally admitting it. You finally admitting it on the show.
What?
That you used to go harder for Kobe.
I did.
Thank you. Thank you.
People that nobody knew that. My friend was telling the guy that cuts my hair. He said, "Here's the funny thing, and nobody was gonna ever believe this. He went harder for Kobe than he ever did for LeBron. Kobe was my guy. Kobe was my man. You couldn't tell me nothing about Kobe. So this is how it was. I had Kobe. Kobe was my guy. He liked LeBron. So I said, okay, Kobe. So we got Kobe. I got Kobe. You got LeBron. We can never change players. You got to stay with Kobe. I got to stay with Kobe forever. You got to stay with LeBron. Mm-hmm. He from D.C. He know about this kid named Kevin Durant. So he want KD.
He want KD now.
I say, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal.
Let me get the
cash.
You get LeBron.
Go James.
I'm a trade.
So when KD came to the NBA, I got LeBron.
Yeah.
He took KD. So now I got Kobe and I got LeBron.
So there you can pretty much hear how Shannon Sharpe turned into a Kobe Bryant fan and how he turned into a LeBron James fan. Now, I'm sure a lot of us Kobe fans would have never guessed that Shannon Sharpe would have been a huge Kobe Bryant supporter. And to hear the story of how he ultimately ended up becoming a LeBron James fan due to a back and forth, banter that he had with his friend at the barbershop, or his friend, and how that all came to be, is pretty interesting, because I would have never pegged Shannon Sharpe for a Kobe Bryant fan. Now, it's fair to say, let me just say that in the past, I've heard him speak glowingly about Kobe. I've heard him say really, really nice things about him. But, I mean, nice things in the sense that he's been respectful of Kobe Bryant. But when it came to the LeBron James thing, he always seemed to just kind of scoff at the idea of Kobe Bryant being better than LeBron. Not that he didn't acknowledge that Kobe Bryant was a top 10 basketball player of all time, but he already in his mind saw LeBron James as being the GOAT. So obviously, if that's how he sees LeBron James, there's no way that he could elevate Kobe Bryant too much. So to hear Shannon Sharpe, to find out that he actually used to be a Kobe Bryant fan, was quite surprising. It's just something that I didn't see. And I'm sure a lot of you guys who may have seen that episode or are hearing about me talking about it for the first time will be taken aback that, damn, Shannon Sharpe, the ultimate LeBron James fan, lover, whatever it is, actually used to be a Kobe Bryant fan. WTF. Like, who saw that coming? But it turns out that he was. And I got to commend him for recognizing real, because Kobe Bryant was no joke. I mean, he played for 20 years, 5-time NBA champion, 2 times finals MVP, regular season MVP, 2-time scoring champion, second most points scored in the game in the history of basketball, been on 15 all NBA teams, been on 13 all defensive teams, 9 all first defensive teams, top 5 scorer in the history of the NBA, one of the greatest players of all time. So it was refreshing to see Shannon Sharpe really give Kobe Bryant his just due. I was really surprised, and I was happy to hear it. But I still don't know how he was able to now just all of a sudden become this LeBron James fan because of him and his friend basically trading players, because, when his friend became a fan of Kevin Durant, he now said, okay, let me have LeBron. And now it's like, if he didn't say that in that podcast, I would have never known that he actually liked Kobe Bryant. So for me, it was a bit refreshing to hear, like, whoo, okay, this dude at one point in time was giving Kobe Bryant his props for real. So shout out to Shannon Sharpe for doing that. And much respect to him for that. Again, if you guys are listening to this on the Dreamerspro podcast, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's called Dreamerspro. Make sure you guys check that out. We got a lot of great sports content. And also, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you check out the Dreamerspro podcast. We'll have the link in the description below on Spotify and iTunes, so you guys can definitely go there and check us out. But moving on to the next topic. And the next topic, I'm going to be talking about Stephen A. Smith changing his tune on LeBron James. That's what I want to talk about in this particular segment here. Now, if you haven't been following sports for probably the last 10 years, or basketball for the last 10 years, you may not be aware of the things that I'm about to get into in this segment right here. But believe it or not, at one point in time, Stephen A. Smith used to lean into LeBron James for his antics and him wanting to be praised without accomplishing anything. And in one particular case, Stephen A. Smith went off and he left Skip Bayless at the time on ESPN First Take. He left him in complete disbelief and shock. Skip Bayless was speechless. But before I go too far into it, I want you guys to take a listen to this audio of Stephen A. Smith leaning into LeBron James after he lost in the NBA Finals when he was playing with the Miami Heat and they lost to the Dallas Mavericks. I want you guys to check this out.
Stephen A., you had a particular problem with it. Go.
Well, he came out and he acknowledged later on that he was joking, if I hear correctly. My whole point with LeBron James is that he just needs to be quiet. The NBA had just canceled the first 2 weeks of the season. People, over in excess of $200 million is being lost. People losing their jobs and things of that nature, and here you are joking as usual. I have no problem with them tweeting because players tweet all the time. Mm-hmm. That's not the issue. It's the fact that he was joking, and it was the timing of his joke that I have a problem with. You need to focus, okay, on getting a deal done, getting a collective bargaining agreement reached, so you can get back on the court and make up to millions upon millions of fans who watched you wet the bed in the fourth quarter. That's what you need to be doing. I don't want to hear anything about football. I don't want to hear anything about anything else. I don't want to care. I want to hear about their sneakers. I have no problem with Carmelo Anthony, his sneakers, but they got to win too. And Amari Stoudemire being up here yesterday with his tight suit on and all that. I have no problem with that either. I got no problem with none of that. But LeBron James, it is time. And the reason that I say it's time is because he's the one with the tattoo, the chosen one. He's the one with the King James. I want to hear stuff. He's a great guy, and he's got to deal with a lot of stuff. And we, bottom line is he's a great person, okay? And we shouldn't even be focused on anything but his game. But his game has come up short time and time again. And the one other thing that I want to say, Skip, before I leave this to you, and I'm dead serious about this. There's something about LeBron James that's really starting to alarm me. You got titles, King James, chosen one. None of the great guys, they shun all of that until they won a championship. It's like he wants to be crowned with no rings. You don't get to do that.
Skip's been saying
you got to get
years.
it done. And I've been holding off on it because I disagreed with Skip totally. But to lose in the finals the way that he did, and then to come out here with the smile on your face like that, the world is just beautiful. I don't understand it. Champions don't do that. They just don't. That's what I wanted to say.
Sounds familiar.
Why are you so hard on this poor man?
That is funny coming from you. That is hysterical. Oh my God. Wait. You of all people.
Do you have something personal against this man?
You know what?
That's all I've ever heard for 5 years.
Listen, man. Listen, Skip. It's got me to the point. I never dreamed that I would see LeBron James not show up in the fourth quarter the way he did for 4 straight games in the NBA Finals. But then to come out and to say what he said in the aftermath of that press conference, people are just going to go back to their regular old lives. And to walk around all summer long, city to city, state to state, wherever he is, big fat smile on his face like, it's no big deal that we lost and I embarrassed myself in the NBA Finals. It's no big deal. I can't take it no more. Enough.
I'm shocked.
Enough.
Yep, I'm shocked.
Enough.
Right now.
Stephen A.
You got to
Bayless.
get it done.
Now, if you guys listen to that clip, you would not believe that it's the same Stephen A. Smith that we see today on TV talking about LeBron James. You wouldn't believe it. At that time, LeBron hadn't won any NBA titles. He hadn't won any championships. So Stephen A. Smith at that time was much more brazen. He was much more in your face. He's still outspoken, but then, he had been called back to be on ESPN because he was there. Then he had his own show. He ultimately left the network. You would see him on Fox News and other places. And then ultimately was recruited back to come work on ESPN by who? Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless said, I want Stephen A. Smith to be my co-star. And now ultimately Stephen A. Smith ended up being the star of that show on ESPN, ESPN First Take, which used to be called Cold Pizza. And now he's the star of the show with Max Kellerman. But Skip Bayless was the one that got him back in the game, so to speak. It was Skip Bayless. So back then, I think Stephen A. Smith was really trying to make a splash and make sure that now that he's back with the network, he stays with the network. And it turned out now he's the number one face of ESPN. When we talk about sports commentators and analysts, he's the number one. He's the biggest one. I think he's the highest paid ESPN analyst currently. So, but at a certain point in time, Stephen A. Smith was leaning into LeBron James, going off on him. But over the years, he began to change his tune on LeBron. And the question is, why did he start to change his tune on LeBron James? That's the question I want us to get into in this episode. Well, you see, what you guys have to understand, or maybe some of you know this, and some of you may be aware of it on a very, very, very superficial level, but sports is a big business game. Sports media is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Multi-billion-dollar industry. And I'm not going to sit here and break down all the numbers to you, although we do crunch these numbers, because at Dreamerspro, we're trying to really build a really big company a sports media brand and company that you guys can really, really be a part of. And especially as you guys that have started following this channel in the beginning, now we have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 subs. You guys are the foundation of what we're building. Your comments, your feedback, your support is the foundation of what Dreamerspro will be in the next 5 to 10 years. You guys. And we deeply appreciate you guys for being with us on this journey. So me being a business person, although I love sports, I'm a businessman first. I study these companies, I study the media world, these sports companies, and understand how they interact with different sports leagues and the players and contracts and agents and all of these things. I have to understand that. So I'm not just here producing content. We're not just here producing content for you guys, but we're also trying to improve and give you guys content that you can enjoy for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So you can say, hey, I was there when that company started in 2018, when they first started their YouTube channel in September 2018, and I saw the journey. Now I'm here, enjoying all the other things that they provided. So I'm a historian of this industry. I'm studying it. I'm still learning it. So let me explain to you guys essentially why Stephen A. Smith changed his tune on LeBron James, in case you guys may not be aware of this. ESPN makes about 10 point something billion in revenue. At least that's what they did in 2019. Okay. Maybe 80% of their revenues, 85% of their revenues come from TV deals that they have with major sports leagues like the NFL, or maybe the ESPN broadcast NFL, I'm not sure, but maybe tennis, for sure basketball, and others. And ESPN is currently running a contract with the NBA, a 9-year contract, I believe, where the NBA pays ESPN $2.9 billion per annum to show their games. $2.9 billion, my friends. $2.9 billion. That's not counting all the other hundreds of millions that they generate doing other things that I won't get into, because it's not maybe in the future we'll do some sports business videos. Maybe if you guys want that, please let me know. Maybe in the future I'll do some sports business for you guys. Maybe you guys will enjoy that. I don't know. Maybe know the business of sports. Who knows? Maybe one day maybe we can all do. Maybe we'll do business together. Who knows? And I can do some business videos. Let me know if you guys think that's something you want us to cover in the future. Not now, but in the future, we can probably get into that. So, it's a multi-billion-dollar generating company. I didn't say the industry. Now we're just talking about ESPN, because there are other sports media companies in the world, Sky and Fox Sports and so many others. But for all intended cases, purpose, we're focused on this particular company. And if ESPN is generating that type of money, and the NBA is paying them hundreds of millions of dollars per year, and the face of the face of the product that they're selling is LeBron, you better believe Stephen A. Smith and others need to be very, very cautious of how they go about speaking about their cash cow. Because now we're talking, there's money involved. You're hearing that the NBA wants to get these games going again because of, TV deal, which I'll get into later. So if Stephen A. Smith is the face of ESPN and he's too critical of LeBron, you may have some issues. Some real issues where the upper management may say, hey, watch how you do this. Watch what you're saying and watch how you're saying it. These guys, we're in business with them. And LeBron knows that. And that's why Stephen A. Smith always used to have this thing where, and you guys may remember in the beginning of any critique you'd have of LeBron, let me just say he's a great father, a great businessman, a great basketball player. He always used to joke about this and became a running joke. But it was him essentially putting forth his disclaimer. Have I ticked all the boxes? Have I said all of this? Do I have the green light to now say what I think? Pretty please? And that's essentially the reason why he's changed his tune on LeBron James over the years. Because it's big business, guys. This is big business we're talking about. And essentially, that's the reason why. Has nothing to do with anything. Yeah, you may like LeBron, but there are other reasons. So, to a certain extent, I'm not too critical of him. But that's the reason why. Again, if you guys are listening to this podcast on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you check out the Dreamerspro channel on YouTube. Our name of our channel is Dreamerspro. And if you're watching this episode on YouTube, make sure you check out our Dreamerspro podcast. The link is in the description below. We're on Spotify and iTunes. Which brings me to my final topic. And I'm not going to speak very much on this. Just the NBA season is on its way. I'm pretty confident that the NBA season will resume. Number one, because the NBA season has to get to at least 70 games where they can claim their TV money. That's number one. Number two, players, they seem to be creating sort of a suitable way for games to start being, played again. And most likely they're going to play them in empty arenas. And what's most likely going to happen is when they do decide to resume games, they may be like a mini training camp for maybe 1 week just to get players reacclimated again, get them scrimmaging with one another, because from what I understand, a lot of players are still in quarantine, so a lot of these players are just playing on their own, from what I understand. Training at home or whatever it is. That's maybe going to the track or whatever it is, but because of the social distancing that everyone needs to practice, maybe most players are just avoiding close proximity. So there's going to need to be a training camp. So you're talking about 1 week, and they're probably going to need about 5 to 10 games to get them up to game speed again. So you're not talking about an additional 2 weeks, maybe 5 games per week, depending, And then we're going to look at the playoffs, to resume the playoffs. And the playoffs can run into late August or September, whatever it is. But I think that the NBA season is on its way. That's the sense I'm beginning to get. Now, we have a lot of time. We're looking at a 4-month hiatus. We're going into April now, depending on when you're listening to this or watching this episode. So we're looking at April, all of May. This was another 2 months. And then the games will start looking to resume in June. So that's what I think. I think the NBA season is on its way. And I think we're going to get some games this year. But what I want to know from you guys is, do you agree with me? Do you think we're going to have an NBA season? If you do think we're going to have an NBA season, what do you think is going to look like? Whatever you think, whatever your thoughts and comments are, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you follow us on the Dreamerspro Podcast. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro. Wishing you guys an amazing weekend, and make sure all of you guys stay safe. Peace.